It was a cold November night at Osteria Siciliana, the kind of place where money and fear mingled in the shadows. The city was restless. Inside, patrons whispered over their wine, anxious to go unnoticed. The waitstaff moved precisely, trained to avoid the gaze of men who could command silence with a glance. Isabella, the youngest server, watched from a corner as the notorious boss, Marco Valente, dined with his men. He was young for a Mafia king, sharp-jawed, tattoos peeking from beneath his cuff, eyes always searching for threats. At his side sat his 10-year-old son, Matteo, silent and observant. Outside, thunder rolled. Suddenly, chaos erupted. Masked men stormed the restaurant, automatic weapons flashing. Screams ricocheted off polished marble. Isabella ducked under a table, heart racing. Marco's bodyguards fired back, glass shattered, blood on the floor. Isabella glimpsed Matteo, trapped behind a fallen chair, terror frozen on his face. Without thinking, she crawled across the floor, risking her life. Bullets zipped past as she shielded Matteo with her own body. "Stay down, close your eyes," she whispered, voice gentle in the nightmare. She was still holding him when the gunman retreated, sirens wailing in the wet night. Marco, injured but alive, saw Isabella and Matteo sprawled together. For the first time, power was helpless, and a waitress, unknown, unassuming, was the reason his son survived. 2 hours later, with the EMTs tending wounds and police lights flashing, Marco approached Isabella as she rested in a quiet hallway. "You saved my son," he said, voice torn between command and gratitude. Isabella replied softly, "I did what anyone would." But Marco knew better. His men rarely minced words. "She's brave." Or foolish. Marco offered her protection, money, a promise that her family would never want again. Isabella declined. "Just let me go home, please," she whispered. Her eyes lingered on Matteo, who clung to Marco's sleeve. Matteo watched as she left that night, vanishing into the rain-soaked city, refusing reward and recognition. Marco sent men to find her, but Isabella disappeared, her address, phone. Even old friends gave nothing away. Rumors swirled. Some said she was running from fear. Others believed she was hiding a greater secret. The Mafia boss, frustrated by his own limitations, could not understand the heart that would risk everything only to vanish. Matteo kept Isabella's secret, one she'd whispered as police cleared the chaos. When the world asked where she'd gone, only the boy could answer. But for now, he kept it close, remembering the gentle hand that saved his life. Weeks passed. Marco increased his search, deploying resources more loyal than the police. Isabella remained a ghost, her apartment abandoned, social media erased. The city hummed with stories. Some called her an informant, others a shadow agent. Some whispers accused her of betrayal. Marco's trusted advisor, Bruno, urged caution. People don't just disappear. She knows something. Marco doubted this. All he'd seen in Isabella was kindness, a kind too rare to survive their world. At home, Matteo refused to speak, spending hours alone, clutching a small locket Isabella had given him in the chaos. Marco pressed him. "If you know where she is, tell me." But Matteo only shook his head. "She asked me to trust her." Marco, more accustomed to issuing orders than waiting for answers, let it go. The Mafia's enemies saw opportunity in chaos. They probed for weakness. Was Marco distracted, vulnerable? But the boss doubled down, tightening security, never letting Matteo out of sight. Still, every evening, Marco watched Matteo sleep and wondered about the truth hidden in the boy's silent eyes. Matteo carried Isabella's secret like treasure. On the night she vanished, Isabella had pulled him close. "I need you to promise me something, Matteo. Don't tell anyone about me, except when it's time." Matteo didn't understand at first. Isabella explained that some dangers run deeper than bullets, that true safety sometimes meant letting go. She told him about her own family, lost to violence, and how she'd survived by hiding. She pressed a silver locket into his palm. "If anything happens, open this, read what's inside." Matteo kept his word, ignoring questions, carrying his secret through each day. Marco sensed the weight, but respected his son's promise. At school, Matteo did well but remained withdrawn. Teachers noticed fear in his eyes. Marco tried therapists, hoping to unlock the silence. But Matteo kept the secret, trusting Isabella's wish. As spring approached, Matteo dreamed nightly of their rescue. Isabella's quiet strength. The world could wait. He would know when it was time. Marco wrestled with frustration. Power had always given him answers, but the truth about Isabella was out of reach. At night, he replayed the chaos, the split-second choice that saved Matteo. Bruno pressed for harder methods, suggesting surveillance, bribes, threats. Marco refused. "We don't harm kindness," he insisted. He visited Isabella's old haunts, the church she once volunteered at, the bakery where she bought bread on Sundays. The sentimentality surprised his men. Marco was changing, loss making him less ruthless, more human. Each failed lead made the Mafia boss doubt his own grip on the city. Yet he could not punish his son's loyalty. "She is your savior," Marco reminded Matteo. "If you speak, only do so when you are ready." Matteo nodded, holding the locket over his heart. In Victor's world, vulnerability was weakness. But Marco, changed by one act of courage, wondered if it might be the one strength he'd always missed. A year passed. Marco's kingdom flourished, but he grew weary. Rumors of Isabella only deepened. Some said she'd fled overseas, others that she'd joined another syndicate. Only Matteo knew better, sometimes sending secret letters to an anonymous downtown address. He protected the past, believing the truth would surface when needed. Crime surged in parts of the city. Marco's enemies pressed in, testing his limits. The staff feared for Matteo's safety. Marco strengthened his bonds, pulling his son closer. One day, a rival attempted an attack on the Valente estate. Gunfire sprayed as staff darted for cover. Marco moved to protect his son, but Matteo had vanished in the chaos. Staff searched frantically. Marco, wild with fear at losing both son and savior, stormed through the halls. An hour later, in a quiet upstairs study, Matteo emerged, holding Isabella's locket, but no longer afraid. He met Marco's eyes. "It's time," he whispered. Matteo led his father to his bedroom, closed the door, and unlocked the silver locket. Inside, folded paper with neat, careful handwriting. "Matteo, if you read this, it means your world is at risk. Trust your father, but first, share this only when you feel safest. The real danger isn't just outside. Sometimes it follows us home. If you ever need me, send a message to the address on this note. Never tell anyone except family. With love, Isabella." Marco's hands shook as he read. The address matched one he'd found before, discarded as irrelevant. Matteo confessed, "She taught me that survival is sometimes hiding, sometimes fighting. She wanted to protect us from something bigger." Marco realized what he'd missed. Isabella's disappearance was not betrayal, but a calculated act to shield Matteo, and maybe the family. He ordered Bruno, no harm. No punishment. Look for her with respect. That night, Marco drafted a letter. "We are safe. You saved my son. If you wish, come home." 3 days later, in a deserted cafe at dawn, Marco waited anxiously. Isabella appeared, changed by months in hiding but still carrying quiet strength. Matteo ran to her, relief painting his face. Marco greeted her gently. "Why did you do it?" Isabella explained. After the rescue, threats against her family escalated. Disappearing meant drawing danger away from Matteo and Marco. Her contacts, old allies in law enforcement, helped her hide. She'd watched the Mafia's world carefully, sending clues when she could. "I wanted to save more than one life. Sometimes you must leave to protect those you love." Marco's gratitude broke through old armor. "You gave my son hope. You changed me." Isabella smiled, proud of Matteo's loyalty, pleased that Marco understood. She agreed to return slowly, first helping at the estate, then resuming work at Osteria Siciliana. The staff, stunned, embraced her. Trust took time, but love returned. Isabella's reappearance was healing for Matteo and Marco. The city's rumors faded, replaced by admiration for the survivor who risked all. She led community programs, teaching staff and local children resilience and hope. Matteo thrived, learning from her courage. Marco, now more human than ever, built a sanctuary within his criminal empire. He protected kindness, rewarding honesty. The family feasted together every week, sharing stories and laughter. Staff who'd once feared Isabella saw her as family. Rivals respected her strength, sensing new limits to their reach. Forgiveness reigned, old wounds faded, replaced by stories of survival. Matteo learned to speak openly, trusting his secrets to both Isabella and Marco. Isabella remained cautious, but her confidence grew. She taught both men that sometimes healing means accepting what cannot be fixed, but building nonetheless. Years later, Matteo, now grown, retold the story that had shaped his life. The waitress who disappeared had become his second mother, showing him that love sometimes means letting go until the world is safe enough to return. He credited Isabella with saving not just his life on that chaotic night, but also his father's soul and the family they rebuilt together. Whenever visitors asked how a mafia boss learned to forgive and trust, they pointed to the silver locket, symbol of courage, selflessness, and secrets kept only by a boy who knew why.